In the ever-turning, emotionally charged world of the bold and the beautiful, happiness is rarely delivered without a cost. When Carter Walton finally found himself standing at the altar with a woman who did not love another man, who did not carry emotional residue from a past that overshadowed him, and who genuinely chose him without hesitation, it felt almost too good to be true. For years Carter had existed in the margins of other people's love stories. He had been the supportive friend, the rebound, the man who arrived too late or cared too deeply. With Daphne Rose, however, something felt different. She saw him clearly. She wanted him openly. She did not compare him to anyone else. For a man who had long measured himself against ghosts of former rivals, this was transformative. And yet, in soap opera tradition, when two characters rush toward domestic bliss with urgency and certainty, viewers instinctively brace themselves for the crack beneath the surface. The red flag was not subtle. Carter and Daphne did not simply want to build a life together, they wanted it immediately. Marriage was only the beginning. They spoke of children almost before the wedding champagne had gone flat. Their shared longing was tender, almost innocent in its intensity. Neither had children of their own. Neither had experienced the profound shift that parenthood brings. For Carter especially, the desire to become a father was not about legacy or ego. It was about healing something quiet and unspoken inside him. He had watched other men in his circle cradle newborns, wrestle toddlers, and navigate sleepless nights. He had offered congratulations with genuine warmth, yet privately wondered whether that chapter would ever belong to him. Daphne's enthusiasm seemed to answer that silent ache. She wanted a family not someday, but now. And in that urgency lay the warning sign that seasoned fans of long-running dramas recognize all too well. Soap operas do not reward immediacy. They complicate it, they stretch it, they test it. When characters declare that all their dreams are aligning at once, narrative gravity tends to intervene. Carter and Daphne's desire for a baby felt like destiny fulfilled, but it also felt narratively precarious. Newly married, still learning the rhythms of life together, they were already racing toward the next milestone. The speed of their hope hinted that something would obstruct it, and soon enough, that obstruction began to take shape. The struggle with fertility did not arrive as a dramatic explosion. It came quietly, in missed expectations and doctor visits that yielded uncertainty instead of reassurance. Daphne's body did not cooperate with her timeline. What began as optimism shifted into anxiety. Each month became a test not just of biology but of emotional resilience. For a woman who had always presented strength and clarity, the possibility that she might not be able to carry a child to term struck at her sense of identity. She had envisioned herself as a mother without hesitation. Now she found herself questioning her own physical reliability, her own capacity to fulfill the future she had promised both herself and Carter. Carter, in turn, struggled with a different but equally potent fear. He had finally secured the kind of love that had eluded him for years. Would this unforeseen challenge fracture it? He told himself that their bond was stronger than circumstance. Yet he could not entirely silence the insecurity that had haunted his past relationships. What if disappointment hardened into resentment? What if Daphne blamed herself and withdrew? What if he, despite his best intentions, revealed frustration in ways that wounded her further? The desire for a child was shared, but the physical burden was not. Watching the woman he loved endure tests, procedures, and quiet tears created a helplessness that no legal expertise or emotional eloquence could fix. As medical consultations grew more sobering, the conversation shifted from natural conception to alternative paths. The word surrogate entered the room not as a casual suggestion but as a lifeline. It represented possibility but also complexity. Surrogacy is never simply a medical arrangement in a town like Los Angeles where relationships overlap and histories intertwine. It is an emotional contract layered atop existing loyalties. And in this world, no name surfaced more naturally, or more dramatically, than Steffy Forrester. Steffy Forrester has rarely existed on the periphery of major storylines. As a central figure within the Forrester dynasty, she carries both influence and emotional authority. She has navigated love triangles, corporate wars, family betrayals, and personal reinventions. Motherhood, however, remains one of her defining transformations. With 2 children of her own, she understands the magnitude of what Carter and Daphne yearned for. More importantly, she was instrumental in bringing Daphne into Carter's orbit in the first place. Without Steffy's encouragement, their romance might never have ignited. In many ways, she feels invested in the success of their marriage as though it validates her own instincts and interventions. The idea that Steffy might volunteer to carry their child seems both altruistic and narratively explosive. On the surface, it aligns with her protective loyalty. She loves both Carter and Daphne. She wants them to experience the fullness of life she herself cherishes. Offering to be their surrogate would cast her as the hero once again. A woman willing to endure pregnancy for the sake of friends' happiness. Yet beneath that generosity lies a web of emotional risk that even Steffi may underestimate. Pregnancy is not a detached service. It is an intimate, transformative journey. It alters the body, the hormones, the psychology. Even with clear legal agreements and conscious boundaries, attachment forms. The baby would be genetically Carter and Daphne's, yet physically nurtured within Steffi's body. She would feel the kicks. She would endure the cravings, the discomfort, the anticipation. She would give birth. Could she truly separate that embodied experience from the act of handing the child over? And what would that moment look like? Not in a legal document, but in a hospital room heavy with tears and gratitude? For Daphne, the proposal would evoke gratitude mixed with vulnerability. Accepting Steffi's help might feel like admitting defeat. It might confirm her deepest fear that her body has failed her. Watching another woman carry the child she cannot would require extraordinary emotional strength. Even if she trusts Steffi implicitly, insecurities could surface in unexpected ways. Would she feel displaced during the pregnancy? Would she worry about the bond forming between Carter and Steffi as they attend appointments together? Would old patterns of comparison creep into her mind despite her certainty that Carter chose her freely? Carter himself would occupy the most delicate position of all. He would need to support Daphne's fragility while maintaining respectful gratitude towards Steffi. He would need to participate in the pregnancy process without crossing emotional lines. The optics alone could fuel gossip within their social circle. In a world where history between men and women rarely disappears entirely, even the purest intentions can be misinterpreted. Carter's longing to become a father might blind him to subtle tensions building around him. The writers of the show have never hesitated to weave Steffi into the emotional core of unfolding drama. Positioning her as a surrogate would not merely advance Carter and Daphne's storyline. It would entangle Steffi in yet another moral and emotional crossroads. She would once again be the axis around which multiple lives rotate. And as compelling as that narrative choice might be, it would inevitably generate fallout. Imagine the months progressing. Daphne oscillates between hope and inadequacy. Carter balances anticipation with anxiety. Steffi navigates physical changes that awaken memories of her own pregnancies. Perhaps she tells herself that this time is different, that she is simply a vessel for love. Yet late at night, when the baby shifts beneath her ribs, instinct does not recognize contractual boundaries. Instinct recognizes connection, and connection complicates everything. The ultimate question is not whether surrogacy could make Carter a father. Medically, it likely could. The deeper question is what emotional cost would accompany that miracle. Would Daphne and Carter emerge stronger, united by shared perseverance? Would Steffi's heroic gesture elevate her further within her circle, or leave her quietly grieving a bond she cannot publicly claim? Carter's dream of fatherhood has always been portrayed as sincere and patient. He has waded through failed romances and personal reinventions. To see that dream finally within reach would be profoundly satisfying. Yet in this universe, fulfillment rarely arrives without a twist. Perhaps the struggle itself will redefine what family means for him and Daphne. Perhaps the journey will reveal that parenthood is not simply about biology, but about resilience, partnership, and trust tested under pressure. If Steffi steps forward, she will not merely be offering her body. She will be offering her emotional endurance. And whether she does so out of pure loyalty, subconscious need for significance, or a complex mixture of both, the choice will ripple outward. Friendships will be tested, marriages will be examined, boundaries will blur. In the end, the image that lingers is not just of a baby longed for, but of three adults navigating love's most delicate territory. Carter may finally hold a child in his arms, the culmination of years of yearning. Daphne may experience motherhood in a way she once feared impossible. Steffi may stand between joy and loss, both hero and silent sufferer. The question remains suspended. Will this act of sacrifice solidify their bonds, or unravel them in ways none of them anticipate? In the world of the bold and the beautiful, happiness is never a simple destination. It is a battleground where hope and heartbreak coexist. And if Steffi chooses to carry Carter and Daphne's child, the true story will not be about biology alone. It will be about identity, loyalty, and the fragile line between giving a gift and losing a piece of oneself in the process. In the emotionally volatile universe of the bold and the beautiful, love rarely unfolds in a straight line, and no relationship exists in isolation from the weight of history, family, and unresolved rivalries. Taylor Hayes has always prided herself on being a woman of intellect and emotional insight. A psychiatrist trained to recognize manipulation, trauma, and dangerous attachment patterns in others. Yet when it came to her own heart, even she proved vulnerable. Her growing connection with Deacon Sharp felt, at first, like a rebellion against predictability. A late-in-life surge of desire and validation that reignited something within her she thought had long faded. For once, she was not orbiting Ridge Forrester's indecision or Brooke Logan's gravitational pull. She was choosing someone unexpected, flawed, even controversial. And that choice, bold and intoxicating, ultimately became the very source of unbearable pressure. Taylor's romance with Deacon was not born in innocence. Deacon is married to Sheila Carter, a woman whose history is steeped in chaos and calculated violence. Though Deacon insisted that his feelings for Taylor were authentic, and Taylor herself defended the purity of what they shared, the relationship existed in a minefield. Ridge, ever protective and deeply entwined in Taylor's life, saw danger not as a possibility but as a certainty. He did not merely disapprove, he predicted catastrophe. In his view, the exposure of Taylor and Deacon's emotional entanglement would not result in heartbreak alone. It would provoke Sheila, and when Sheila is provoked, consequences are rarely mild. At first, Taylor resisted. She argued that she was entitled to happiness, that she was capable of assessing risk, that she would not allow fear of Sheila to dictate her future. Steffi, however, could not penetrate her mother's romantic haze. Watching Taylor defend Deacon felt surreal to her, almost destabilizing. Steffi had seen firsthand what Sheila was capable of. She had endured trauma, threats, near-fatal encounters. To witness her mother willingly entangle herself in a situation connected to that woman was intolerable. Desperation led Steffi to escalate her pleas into ultimatums. She even threatened to restrict Taylor's access to her grandchildren. A move born not from cruelty but from terror. Yet even that did not sway Taylor. Love, or what she believed to be love, outweighed the threat of estrangement. It was Ridge's intervention that ultimately broke her resolve. Ridge did not approach her as a jealous ex-lover, though jealousy undoubtedly flickered beneath the surface. He approached her as a man who had known her intimately for decades, who understood her vulnerabilities and her pride. He framed the situation not as an emotional choice but as a survival decision. He painted a vivid portrait of what would happen when Sheila discovered the truth. He described the unpredictability, the danger, the potential for irreversible harm. His words were not shouted, they were calculated, steady, relentless. He did not demand that Taylor choose him. He demanded that she choose safety. Under the weight of his reasoning, and perhaps under the resurfacing familiarity of his presence, Taylor faltered. She told her family she would stop seeing Deacon. She framed it as responsibility. She assured Steffi that she would no longer jeopardize herself or those she loved. Outwardly, it was a concession. Inwardly, it felt like surrender. But surrender does not always equal closure. The shift in Taylor's thinking was abrupt, almost too abrupt. For a woman who had defied her daughter's pleas and clung to her right to love whom she wished. Her compliance with Ridge's directive raised questions. Was she truly convinced of the danger? Or was she overwhelmed by the reactivation of old emotional patterns? Ridge has always held a unique influence over her. His approval, his disapproval, his tone of urgency, these have shaped her decisions in the past. It is possible that what changed Taylor's mind was not solely fear of Sheila, but the re-emergence of Ridge as a central voice in her life. Deacon, meanwhile, was unlikely to accept rejection quietly. The owner of Il Giardino has never been a man who retreats gracefully. His history with Ridge is riddled with rivalry, particularly where Brooke is concerned. He has fought, argued, and humiliated himself in pursuit of women he loves. To believe that he would simply return home to Sheila and accept his fate would underestimate him profoundly. Yet his current situation complicates matters. He remains married. However strained that marriage may be, it exists. Pursuing Taylor aggressively while legally bound to Sheila borders on recklessness, even by Deacon's standards. Still, recklessness has never deterred him before. When Deacon learns that Ridge convinced Taylor to end their relationship, the revelation will likely ignite not only heartbreak but defiance. In his mind, Ridge has interfered, manipulated, and once again positioned himself as gatekeeper of Taylor's happiness. Deacon may interpret Taylor's compliance not as rejection but as coercion. And if he believes she is sacrificing love out of fear, he may feel compelled to rescue her from that fear, even if she has publicly declared the relationship over. This is where the narrative tension deepens. Taylor claims she is choosing family over romance, yet her internal conflict remains unresolved. She has stated that it is unfair to force her into such a binary decision. In her professional life, she counsels patients to examine gray areas, to resist false dichotomies. Now she is living one. The demand that she abandon love entirely in order to maintain familial harmony contradicts the autonomy she has long advocated. It is possible that she has told Steffi and Ridge what they need to hear simply to quiet the storm. If so, secrecy becomes the next logical step. There is something particularly dangerous about a psychiatrist convincing herself that she can manage deception without consequence. Taylor may believe she can continue seeing Deacon discreetly, that she can compartmentalize the relationship, that she can outmaneuver suspicion. Yet emotional entanglements do not remain hidden easily in Los Angeles. Glances linger. Patterns shift. People notice. Moreover, Taylor's judgment may indeed be clouded. Since falling for Deacon, her normally meticulous decision-making appears impulsive. She has underestimated the impact of her actions before. She may underestimate it again. In her mind, continuing the relationship quietly might seem like a harmless compromise, protecting her family from anxiety while preserving her own happiness. But secrets have a way of magnifying rather than minimizing danger. Ridge's motivations are equally layered. While he positions himself as protector, he cannot entirely disentangle his concern from possessiveness. Taylor moving on with Deacon destabilizes his emotional equilibrium. For years, he has drifted between Brooke and Taylor, each woman representing different aspects of his identity. Seeing Taylor genuinely invested in someone outside that triangle threatens the structure he has always relied upon. Convincing her to end things may be partially about safety, but it is also about control. Steffi's role intensifies the stakes further. Her loyalty to her mother is fierce, yet her trauma link to Sheila is profound. She cannot separate Deacon from his wife, no matter how adamantly he insists on emotional separation. In Steffi's worldview, proximity equals danger. If Taylor resumes contact with Deacon in secret and Steffi discovers it, the betrayal will cut deeper than the original relationship. It will confirm her fear that her mother's judgment has been compromised. And what of Sheila? Though she may not yet be aware of the emotional affair, the potential revelation hangs like a storm cloud. Sheila thrives on feeling wronged. If she learns that her husband has pursued another woman, particularly a woman tied to Ridge and the Forrester family, the fallout would not be subtle. Ridge's warnings may not be exaggerated. They may be prophetic. Thus the central question remains unresolved. Have Taylor and Deacon truly ended? Or have they merely retreated underground? The history between Deacon and Ridge over Brooke adds yet another combustible element. Their rivalry has always been as much about ego as about love. If Deacon continues to pursue Taylor, it will not only be an act of passion but an act of defiance against Ridge. Conversely, if Ridge senses ongoing contact, his protective instincts may morph into confrontation. The cycle of masculine competition, long a staple of their interactions, could reignite with Taylor as the focal point. From a narrative perspective, it is difficult to imagine Deacon surrendering easily. His character arc thrives on persistence. Yet his persistence this time carries heavier implications. He is not a single man chasing romance. He is a married man entangled with one of the show's most volatile antagonists. That reality lends a layer of moral ambiguity to his pursuit of Taylor. Love may be his justification, but irresponsibility shadows his actions. Taylor stands at the center of this storm, torn between autonomy and obligation. Her declaration that she will no longer see Deacon may soothe immediate tension. But it does not erase desire. Nor does it resolve the underlying issue, her longing to be chosen, freely and unequivocally. Ridge's influence may have halted her, but it has not necessarily fulfilled her. If she resumes contact with Deacon discreetly, she risks not only exposure but self-contradiction. A psychiatrist who preaches transparency cannot indefinitely sustain secrecy without internal fracture. The cognitive dissonance will surface. Perhaps in irritability, perhaps in defensiveness, perhaps in renewed tension with her daughter. And if she truly ends it, she must confront the void that follows. Was Deacon a genuine chance at unexpected happiness, or merely a rebellion against her own history? Did she love him, or did she love the version of herself she felt when she was with him? Deacon, faced with rejection, may decide that proving his devotion requires more than words. He may seek to finalize a divorce from Sheila to remove the most obvious obstacle. Or he may double down on persuasion, convinced that Taylor's compliance is temporary. Either path leads to confrontation. Ultimately, the situation encapsulates the essence of the bold and the beautiful. Love entangled with legacy, passion constrained by family expectation, and choices made under pressure that rarely remain contained. Taylor's concession to Ridge may appear decisive, but beneath the surface, currents of unresolved feeling continue to move. If history is any guide, this story is far from over. Whether through secret meetings, explosive discoveries, or renewed declarations of love, the connection between Taylor and Deacon has not evaporated simply because she uttered the word. No. In this world, no often means not yet, and safety purchased at the cost of authenticity rarely holds. The question is not merely whether Deacon will accept rejection. It is whether Taylor can live with the version of herself who chose fear over desire. Or whether she will once again risk everything to prove that her heart, however flawed its judgment, deserves to decide its own fate.